everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Spector Creative on the YouTube channel. Is that how you say it? Or is it another exciting YouTube video on the Spector Creative channel? I don't know. The point is you're here, I'm talking to you, and we're having, a communal conversation, including comments that you can leave. So this is a bit of a follow-up video to one I posted earlier this week about why companies like Mattel and Hasbro, Spin Master, Jax, release the same characters over and over again, or rather, and I was using Mattel as an example for Masters of the Universe. They have been reimagining the 6-inch, 7-inch line several times over the past few years. It started off as, well, first it was Classics, then it was Masterverse, then it was New Eternia, and now it's Vintage. So the video, I talked about the need to keep A-list characters out there at all times. But I've gotten a lot of, the reason I'm making this video is I've gotten a lot of comments from subscribers and viewers asking, well, okay, if they want to reinvent the 6-inch, 7-inch line, why don't they just do classics again? We all have, right, this giant, thing of Masters of the Universe toys that we, love. And, all right, well, let's dive into that. So why doesn't Mattel just, turn the 6-inch line into, continue classics, use the tooling, use the form factor, so we can keep building out a world? Because outside of, I think Origins is probably number 2 now as far as character selection. Have they beaten the Vintage line? Probably, with characters like Lady Slither and, Demo Man and all that stuff that they're doing. But I think classics may still have the record for the line with the most characters. I highly doubt anyone will be making sort of Laser Lot anytime soon if Ted Baselli has anything to do with it. All right, so let's get back to the subject at hand. So why, if they're reinventing Masters of the Universe over and over again, why don't they just reissue classics? All right, so we got our classic Zodak, right? And here I got my Masterverse Zodak. All right, so obviously they are not 100% the same scale. Masterverse figures are 7-inch, and classics are 6.5. And you might say, oh, what does that matter? Half an inch. And I've made some videos on this. If you take a 7-inch figure, all right, so here's a Marvel Select Iceman, and then here's Marvel Legends Iceman, who's 6 inches. You could see that 7-inch figures and 6-inch figures, it's too much. It's a full inch. They're not compatible. But when you have a 6.5-inch and a 7-inch, boom, compatibility is in the cards-ish. It's not a perfect match, but I mean, it's a lot better than, a 7-inch figure to a 6-inch. You can really, look, Hero is like a good head and shoulders over Iceman. I mean, of course, you can get 7-inch Marvel figure, put it next to another 7-inch, but She-Hulk's supposed to be bigger. She works best when she's compared with a standard 6-inch figure. Ooh, look at how I'm just using all sorts of brands in this one. Okay, so the half an inch difference aside, besides the fact that they're looking at price value, as a 7-inch figure delivers more value than a 6-inch or a 6.5. And while that may be true, one of the things that I think companies miss when they do things like that is they forget about the nature of the collector, who wants homogeny. They want their whole line to look the same. They want all their characters to be in the same scale. In fact, I like to do that with just 6-inch figures in general. So here you can see an image of my 6-inch shelf there, with lots of characters from lots of different companies, but all on the same scale. Scale is very important to us collectors. All right, but I'm kind of drifting off the original subject of, why make this Zodak when, this is what we want. That's actually the problem. The fact that Classics has done so many characters is exactly the problem. So even in 2015, when Classics was ending, and I mentioned this in the other video and in a few, the idea was, when we put out that the not Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones mock ad saying all toy lines must end, the rationale for that was we wanted to end Classics so that fans who had been on board since day one, if they wanted to get off the bus, they could, and they weren't going to be forced to buy the same characters over again. We were then going to relaunch the brand as Motu Chronicles to keep the acronym, But it was going to be much like New Eternia. It was going to be a way to redo the main characters again. We'd still, of course, continue to pop out the C and D list characters. That's what Classics was all about. But by rebooting the line, it would give even an online brand with subscription based customers, we still needed to be able to find a way to get the A-list characters out there. It's like what Super 7 did with the Ultimates, right? They first went out there with the A-list characters. So there's sort of two big reasons why Classics can't just continue at retail as the new iteration of Masters of the Universe. One is because Mattel is already so deep in the character selection. So just to reinforce this point, when we originally launched Classics in 2008, 2009, the original idea was to actually just continue the 2000X line. Mattel still had the tooling. There were tons of characters that we wanted to do. And in fact, that's why King Grayskull wound up being the first Classics figure, because it was originally going to be a 2000X King Grayskull. We were going to use the Ice Armor He-Man buck with a new head, and that was going to be the Comic-Con exclusive to kick off what would have been a continuation of 2000X. The reason that it changed from a 2000X continuation into what became Classics was, one, the Horsemen showed up with this amazing prototype that was unasked for, and God bless them for doing that. But two, the realization that, well, wait a minute, if we're just going to continue 2000X, again, much like where Classics is at this point, all the characters have been done. I mean, the main characters. You could do, Miro, and you could do, all sorts of obscure characters from the show. I mean, it had no lack of them. The Horde never got made. So there were some big A-list characters still to come in an articulated figure, not counting the Stactions from NECA. The point being, though, is that by changing from 2000X aesthetic to a continuation of that line to Classics, it allowed us to wipe the slate clean and start over again with all of the A-list characters. And as I explained in this week's previous video, that's why Mattel and other toy companies, this isn't just about Mattel, this is about the toy industry as a whole, is why they keep rebooting the 6-inch, 7-inch line over and over again. And the reason that they don't just make it Classics is because, again, even if they increase the articulation, maybe went with pinless joints, most of the characters have been done in Classics already. We're now at the tail end. We're at like the super D list. You got to get KO in there, right? From New Adventures and Starburst She-Ra. Those are not going to be the greatest sellers. So that's reason one, is by doing a brand new line and not reverting back to Classics, it's an excuse to redo the figures again. And if you remember when Masterverse launched, fans asked Mattel, oh, well, Masterverse is sort of an all-encompassing catch-all, right, for all form factors of Motu in that size. And Mattel said, yeah, the Classics could be done in this. Well, they've had 5 years to prove us wrong here. And, maybe they still will. Maybe I'll wind up looking like an ass, and they'll come out with, a perfect Classics figure, or the vintage Skeletor will turn out to be using Classics parts. Who knows? But the point being is, not continuing Classics is an excuse to start over again, just like New Eternia, just like Masterverse, just like Vintage line is going to be. The second reason is ego. Believe me, I can tell you this from personal experience and from my own personal behavior. Yeah, toy makers have huge egos. And it's really funny because most of toy makers, like brand managers, are kind of sports guys. Like they're kind of like the jocks from high school. They're not toy fans. But it's amazing how as soon as they start working on something cool, like a He-Man line or a Star Wars line, suddenly these guys become like, I don't want to call them huge fans, but they start like wanting to like collect them all, not even realizing like they've been bitten by the collecting bug and they're not even aware of it. So getting to make a physical toy, a product that comes from, your imagination, or, at least you helped usher it in, maybe you came up with the character, the roster, maybe not necessarily creating the character, although, there have been characters I've created that have made toys. More on that another time. So, yeah, toy makers and again, brand managers, and I'm including myself in this pile, of course, want to be able to say, I did that. And reverting back to a line that has had success in the past is kind of tiptoeing on someone else's shoulders. It's like, didn't Ian Malcolm say something like that in Jurassic Park about, standing on the shoulders of giants? So those are kind of the two big reasons. Is if they went back and did classics, it's not allowing the current designers and brand managers to feel like they're putting their thumbprint on the brand because they're putting someone else's. They're going back and doing what someone else did. And everyone who works in the toy industry tends to want to be the hero and come up with something brand new and get all the credit. It's like whenever there's a successful item in the toy industry, everyone runs and says, "Oh, I helped on that. I helped on that." But when something fails, it's like rats off a ship. "Oh, I had nothing to do with that." So those are pretty much the two big reasons: is wanting to make something fresh for both, obviously financial reasons, brand reasons, but there's some ego reasons in there too, and not going back and continuing an older line lets you start over again, and that's kind of the goal. Will we see classics come back? You know, well, I'd love it. I just, even like, it kind of bothers me that like hope was put out there saying, "Oh yeah, classics could wind up in Masterverse," because I was like, that's never going to happen because you're never going to allow your ego to do that. And again, I'm talking with someone with a ridiculous ego myself. So yeah, so that kind of explains it. That's why we're getting vintage and not more classics, even though we all own a huge amount of classics and just want to keep going. It makes more sense financially to start over, not just to do characters, but a brand new brand name. So that way it's not attached to anything in the past. There's no baggage, there's no drama, nothing is attached to people, old personalities. So yeah, that's basically it. So while it would be great, I think that, and plus, classics are expensive to make. I mean, look at, again, I keep using Hero, but I mean, like, look at the difference. I mean, the deco and, this cape is like so paper thin, and I mean, the feet, the boots. I mean, look at the gold compared to the unpainted gold plastic. A retail line can't deliver what classics did because classics produced under the quota, so they were already charging more, but we also slapped so much deco and so many accessories that those figures would never have been able to sell at retail. They would be, today they'd be like $70 figures at retail. So that's crazy, with that much deco. A lot of times I don't think people realize, I mean, every one of these like rivets, right, on his boots is a deco hit. And you'll notice, like on this hero, he doesn't have any rivets. Those, taking out those details and, using a less expensive fabric, soft goods, are always making a product more affordable for retail. And Classics was a premium line. It was always a premium line. So those are kind of your three reasons. The line is too expensive for retail. It's already burned out its character selection, and doing an old line doesn't feed into anyone's ego, including mine. All right, I rambled too much. I hope this explains things. I made this video because of all the comments I was getting on the previous one, and I thought this would be good information to help clear it up. All right, that's all I got today. I hope you enjoyed this, and as always, the best way to support this channel is to share these videos with other people on Facebook and Instagram and X and, all those things. Reddit, who knows, whatever you got. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.